Welcome everybody to Rip's Drum Cave. I'm Rip Phelan. We're talking about electronic versus acoustic drum sets today. And my top choices on the best entry level yet lasting drum kit of choice. So many people think of this when their kid decides that they want to start playing drums. And you're absolutely right. Drums foster curiosity and exploration, and they do make noise. And so this is going to happen with or without drums as your child develops. But if they want to take drum lessons, they need the instrument to practice on. But how do we avoid this? How do we diminish the chaos in the home and allow them to practice and learn the instrument and have fun, but not at everyone else's expense? Many have thought electronic is the way to go. And there are a lot of benefits to electronic devices. They are much quieter. They can put headphones on and hear all the sounds that they want and go crazy and have a blast doing it. And all you hear is a little bit of tapping and thumping. So that's a huge benefit. But there's also some downsides to electronic drums. The biggest one is price. To get a level of quality, you're going to pay more for an electronic device than you would an acoustic drum. And electronic devices work like this. They have a sensor underneath each one of these pads, which sends a signal to the brain. And the brain then decodes that information and then sends an audio signal that you choose or that it chooses. And so on the higher models, they can do this really well. They're very sophisticated. You can get all kinds of different sounds. And if you hit very soft or very hard or you have advanced technique, this brain can handle it. The downside is the price of this model. This is Roland's V-Drum TD25, I believe. Could be the TD50. But it is a very sophisticated machine, and it's going to cost $2,500 to $7,000. And that's a huge investment for someone who's just starting out. But don't worry. There are some cheaper alternatives, but there's a threshold, right? We don't want to go so inexpensive that they quit practicing because the quality has gone down. So bear this in mind. Shopping for either acoustic or electronic. My top pick for the electronic drums to get started, and if you want it to last for a while, is the Roland TD11K. You don't have to go with this bundle. This is what I found on Amazon. And I'm sure prices are going to fluctuate all over the web, but it's the model number that's important. And there are other models that Roland has. Of course, we want to stay away from these higher end ones. The big difference though is a lot of these features down here. So these lower models, they're less expensive, which could be more appealing. However, here's what you're going to sacrifice. This pad right here, this snare drum pad, has a white mesh head on it, which allows you to adjust the tension, which can give you a better response, just like a real drum has. And it also has zone control, so you can hear the center has a different quality of sound than the edges, and then the rim itself can give you an alternate sound as well, just like a real drum. The cymbals also have 3 zones, which give you different bell quality or wash, crash sound, or riding sound, which is going to be closer to the real instrument when you play. You're saving money by these rubber pads here, which is a good deal because you're really only hitting these for movement, right? And different sounds. You don't need a lot of technique necessarily for these, but for the snare drum, this is critical, especially as your child gets better at the drums and they start doing more sophisticated rhythms. And that leads me to the brain. The brain on this one is different from the TD4, whereas it's more sophisticated. It has 15 preset drum kits that you can't edit them, but at their age, they don't need to spend a lot of time studying the ins and outs of the module. They just want to play the drums, and if they want different sounds, they can do that. So I like this. This also comes with like a coaching mode and a metronome, which I think is critical to your success for practicing drums. The latency on it is also very low, meaning when they play faster and more sophisticated rhythms, the brain can handle it and you hear more accurately what you're trying to do. The other reason I like this is because there's a separate bass drum pad, whereas some of the lower models will have a built-in foot switch for the pad. And that is what I call the practice killer. When your bass drum speed gets better and you're trying to play more sophisticated rhythms, this pedal just can't handle it. The mechanism in there just isn't, it doesn't simulate a real bass drum pedal. So I love that this kit has a separate pad and you can attach your own pedal to it. The downside to this kit is that it does not come with a bass drum pedal or a throne, something to sit on. And I'll talk about that in just a moment, some of my picks. But for this price and for the sophistication of everything, this kit is going to last you for several years before you outgrow it. And in fact, it would be difficult to outgrow this kit for a long time. The downside of it is that if you get good enough and you want to start jamming with your friends or you want to start playing gigs, you're going to need an amplifier that can handle the volume requirements of playing with other people. But you don't have to get that right away. You can save some money and get a better amp as you need it. So this would be my suggestion for the lowest level electronic drum set if your son or daughter is serious about playing drums, or at least they're serious enough they want to explore it. I would not suggest this if they're very young, 5 or 6 years old, and they just want to smash things. Go ahead and get a lower end model. Let them go crazy. But if they want to stick with it for a little while and you want your investment to last longer than a couple years, you want it to get 5 or 10 years out of it, then this is my suggestion. Other manufacturers will make something in the same price point. Just look for those details. Can the brain handle a more sophisticated rhythm? Can the snare pad be controlled? Like Yamaha has the ability to tune their snare pads as well. And does the bass drum pad or trigger allow you for your own bass drum pedal? Those are the big three. If you need a drum stool and a bass drum pedal, same thing. You don't want to go too low because the quality is going to suffer. And I found these packages on Amazon. You don't have to go with them. I like them because both of them have the ability to adjust the height in a smoother fashion. You don't have to take out a bolt, put it back in. The material of the leg construction is more sturdy. It's going to last you a lot longer. And the bass drum pedal has height adjustments or beater angle adjustments and spring tension adjustments. Comes with a little drum hammer, which is pretty neat. You can adjust, it's all the tools that you'll need to adjust everything on your kit. And it comes with a little stick holder, which isn't necessary. It's just kind of a fun thing to have. But I like that the bass drum construction is very well, and you can adjust the beater angle. This is actually a low or a lightweight throne and pedal, and this seat can get really low. I have these in our studio at the school, and that's a neat feature. But overall, it's good construction. You're going to be able to adjust everything on it. It's going to last you for a little while. And I'd say, several years if you take care of it. Have a drum throne, or you find an alternative, you want to find something else. This price point for a bass drum pedal is kind of where the lowest I would go, $50. Anything lower than that, you're going to sacrifice on something. And it's usually going to be in the quality of your beater angle, how you can adjust that, the quality of construction from the materials, and it may attach to the bass drum hoop in a really weird way. And so I like this one because it has a sturdy plate. It's got the spring tension. You can adjust this angle. And I believe on this one, you have to take this little screw out and there's 3 positions, which I don't like, but I would deal with it for a young drummer. Over time, you're going to wonder why an acoustic would be better than electronic. If there's so many options on electronic drums to be able to use, then why go acoustic at all? The big thing is it's a real instrument. You hit it and you control all the sound how you hit it. You can manipulate the sounds in way more a variety of ways than you can electronic drums, because electronics are samples or digital models of real things. They're not the real thing itself. So your technique is going to improve the most on an acoustic drum set because you have to control your technique. On electronic drums, you can tap it really lightly but tell the computer to play really loud. And so that can create some bad habits. Whereas on acoustic, you have to control all the sound. So as far as developing your technique on the instrument, acoustic is always going to be a little better choice because of you control everything about it. Top choice for a good long-term investment entry-level drum set. It's going to be this Ludwig because everything is included. You get all the drums, you get the bass drum pedal, you get the bass drum or the drum throne, you get cymbals with it. And these cymbals are good quality cymbals. Some of the lower end models that you see out there for beginning drums is the hardware is going to be lower quality. It's going to wear out. You're going to break them. The cymbals are going to be lower quality. They're going to sound terrible. You're going to bend and break them sooner. These are going to last you for a lot longer. The heads you can change, and I would change them sooner rather than later. I change my heads not as often as I should, but when I'm gigging a lot, I change my heads every month, sometimes twice a month. And you don't have to. I'm a professional, so I need my drums to sound good as best as they can every time I play. But you can change these for better quality heads to give you different sounds, different types of heads if you don't like the sound. And learning how to tune the instrument is part of drumming. It's part of our choice. And what I like about these is the upgradability of acoustic drums, because these shells, they're not amazing shells, but they're good shells. They're solid. They're 9-ply poplar, which is a wood popular, I think, in Asia, and it's plentiful. They sound good. They sound warm. They're kind of like maple, but not quite as present. That's why they have to give it more ply so you can get a little bit more volume from it. But if your son or daughter is playing drums and they've been playing for a little while and they're starting to want to play with friends and they want to maybe do gigs or do some band practice and stuff, you can take this out and you can upgrade everything over time. So if they're still playing drums and they're in high school, you can take this out on a show and be okay. This can get you, 5, 10, 20 years of life out of it before you start developing your ear in a way where you have to get a new drum set. I've had my drums for 27 years now. It's my first kit, and I still use it on gigs because I've changed the heads, I've changed the hardware, I've changed the cymbals, and so I've been able to utilize the shells, the same original drum set, even though I've upgraded everything else over time. I also like this kit because you can get it in a 20-inch bass drum versus a 22, which allows you to lower the height of these toms, which just makes everything a little easier. And you still get a lot of sound out of the bass drum, even though it's a 20-inch. I kind of like 20-inch a little bit better than a 22 at times. Although the church I play at has a 24-inch bass drum, and it sounds like a monster. So, what about this? The whole reason we wanted to go electronic, right, was because drums can be loud. There are some alternatives out there. these practice pads, they just sit right on top of the drums themselves. And I like this brand because you can adjust the little mesh on them and they sit right on top of the drums. You're playing your instrument, you're playing your drums. They feel like your drums and you hear your drums. They actually sound just like your drums. They're just 80% lower in volume. It's remarkable. And if you want to know more about this brand, the Artom Black Hole Mesh Practice Heads, then just Google them or YouTube them, and you'll see some videos on Sweetwater's website. They do a really good demo of this, and I love it. They sound great. I want to actually get these for the studio, for the drum cave. You can get them as a set for all the drums that you have. So remember, if you get the 20-inch Ludwig, then you're going to want to get a 20-inch bass drum head. Just watch out for that. Look for cheaper models. These are little foam practice mutes. You just slap them on there. And I don't like these as much because they change the way the drums feel. They feel a little gushier. They're harder to play, and you don't quite sound the same anymore. But they're a good alternative. So bottom line is you want an instrument for your son or daughter to practice on that they can also grow into. As their ability, their skills, and their knowledge of drumming improves, you want an instrument that can improve with them. And if you decide you want to go with the electronic drums to save everybody in the household a little bit of sanity, this is my recommendation, the Roland TD11K. There are other manufacturers that make drums in this same price point. So you can look at Alesis or Yamaha, maybe Behringer or Simmons. But look for those elements. Can you get a separate bass drum pedal with the trigger? Does the brain have a sophisticated enough component where it can handle all the snare drum technique that your son or daughter is going to be learning over time? And if not, stay away from them. So you don't have to go with this one. This is just my choice. My opinion, I think you're going to get the longest use from an electronic drum set if you go with the Roland TD11K. Of course, you're going to need to buy a pedal and a throne. And again, go with something else. Just remember the quality of the construction, your ability to adjust the angle of the beater. And if you think acoustic is a better way to go, don't forget the practice mesh heads on there or some alternative, some kind of practicing mute system. But I think this is going to get a few more years out of it than the electronic version. But this comes with everything that you need. The Ludwig Element Evolution has a bass drum pedal, a throne, good cymbals, and over time you'll upgrade the heads. Over time you'll upgrade the cymbals. Eventually you'll get a different or better bass drum pedal. You might even change out the snare drum after several years. But again, these choices are based on, I want your child to stay in drumming 5, 10, 15, 20 years and still use the same instrument, but just upgrade the little bits of it, as opposed to buying a lower priced kit and having to throw that away and buy a new one when they get better, because it's going to be a practice killer. A barrier to practice is the quality of the instrument. All of these, you're looking at about $1,000. So that's after tax usually. If you stay around that price point, you're going to get comparable quality across all brands. And so definitely do your research, look at other instruments, look at other brands. And if you find them in the same price point, chances are they're going to have the same features that I'm talking about here. At the end of the day, this is what we want, right? We want our child to enjoy the journey of drumming, right? We want them to express themselves creatively. We want them to learn skills and learn how to develop discipline, because in order to get better at something, you have to be constant practice, little bits over time, and learning and stacking on top of skills. And so we want to enjoy the journey of drums and making music. And This is how it's done. You need a good instrument for that journey. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the information that I've provided for you. Hopefully I answered some questions. Please comment, ask more questions down in the comments below. We'll see you at lessons next week. I'll have a description, a link to all the items that I talked about in the description. And so thanks again, everybody. We'll see you soon.